What up, motherfucks? It's the hater back again, and today we're gonna talk about something that was requested from the hater. The hater gets some requests here and there, and I try to satisfy all of them because that's how I am, you know what I mean? But specifically, some requests like this one just jump out and make me wonder, why haven't I done this before? Or why haven't I done this since the hater reboot of 2020? You know what I mean? It really is a fascinating question because I believe that a lot of good content comes from people, and that, you know, suggestions, I should say, right? Obviously, it comes from people, motherfucks. Where else would content come from? Up your own ass. So, anyways, with that being said, today we're going to talk about 25 reasons. That's right, motherfucks. Why Enzo Amore is awesome. All right. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, Enzo Amore is a very polarizing wrestling figure. People either love him or they hate him. I mean, I never understood why anyone would hate Enzo. I mean, Enzo's fucking awesome, but you know, here we are. People do hate him sometimes. So I decided to help those people out with 25 motherfucks as to why he should not be hated, and more importantly, as to why he is awesome. All right, reason one, motherfucks. Enzo and Cass were the classic little guy, big guy tag team. Now, this is a good wrestling trope. It's one of the good ones, right? Because here's the problem. Recent tag teams have pretty much been composed of two people that are the same. Now, this has a place too, don't get me wrong. So, for example, the Usos, they're twins, right? They can't help the fact that they're twins. That's how it's going to be. But if you look at a lot of things that are happening nowadays, like reboots, things like that, things are being changed around to reflect this need for diversity. And I don't just mean like racial or sexual diversity. I mean diversity, right? So, for example, I saw a little clip, right, of apparently there's a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV show, right? And one of the guys is like a normal-sized guy, like Raphael, I think, is like a big hulking turtle, you know? So, like, they understood that, like, having the same four guys look the same had its own charm. But this, too, might have its own charm, you know what I mean? And that's why it's important, I think, for tag teams to have some diversity within themselves, right? A lot of great tag teams are like that, you know? They might have the same gimmick, the same idea, the same general trend, but they are portrayed as two different individuals, right? Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso are obviously extremely interchangeable. They're fucking twins, you know what I'm saying? Doesn't get much more interchangeable than that, motherfuckers, you know? So there you have it, right? Whereas if you look at some great tag teams, like Devon and Bubba Ray, you know, the Dudley Boys were obviously a tag team with like a solid gimmick, you know? The gimmick changed around a couple of times. They went from just being ECW guys to being these two assholes to being guys like to put girls through tables. And then eventually they became legends, and their tag team gimmick was they're just legends, right? But think about that. You know, if anybody knows the story of Big Daddy Dudley or whatever his name was, right? The jobber that went around and fucked broads in all the indies. You know what I'm saying? Like, he fucked someone from like New York or whatever, and out came Devon, right? That's the storyline. Then he fucked someone from like the South, and out came Bubba Ray, who would wear the Confederate flag on his head. You know what I mean? And he would have a stutter. Like, these were characters, right? And the entire premise of the Dudley Boys is that these guys are obviously not brothers, right? Like, most likely, you can tell by looking at them, they're not brothers, right? And then later this was shifted to them being like best friends who consider themselves brothers, which I believe is true in real life as well. But you understand what I'm saying? Like, the whole premise was like, there's an absurdity element to it, you know? And it's like, and the absurdity comes from the fact that they're not the same. You know, it's not absurd, for example, for Edge and Christian to be brothers because they look very similar, right? And they have the same haircut, you know what I'm saying? So there you have it, right? So Enzo and Cass, you can tell that they're different guys. By looking at Enzo and by looking at Cass, you can tell what the role of each individual member is going to be in the tag team, right? Most likely, Enzo, the small guy, is going to be the guy that gets his ass kicked and makes a hot tag to Cass. This is a very, like, useful and, to be fair, very overused formula, but nonetheless, it has its merits. You know what I'm saying? So that's reason one, cucks. You know what I mean? Now let's go on to reason two up in this bitch. I can't even read my list, motherfuckers. Reason two, they had catchy catchphrases that everyone yelled out. This reason speaks for itself. I don't have to explain this any further. I think everyone can understand what I'm saying, but we're going to talk about that a bit more later, you know? So there you go. Reason three, they correctly highlighted a big problem with today's wrestling with their catchphrase of soft, right? They understood that a lot of these motherfuckers are soft boys, right? They're soft, weak bitches. So Enzo pointed that out every chance he could. It wasn't just with a soft gimmick, it was with other things, you know? Now, wrestlers have this weird ego, right? Where they really start believing their own hype, and they start thinking they're like tough guys, right? Especially these like Daniel Bryan-ish wrestlers or people like Simon Gotch. Remember him? More on him later, motherfuckers, right? They start believing that they're these like submission specialists. It's like, dude, you don't know anything. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're like a guy that went to the gym for 3 weeks and trained there and never had the balls to get into like an MMA fight, right? So don't tell me that nonsense, right? So Enzo Amore didn't do any of that, right? But he did point out subliminally people that are like that, people that have this inflated ego. You know what I mean? So there you have it. That's reason 3, cucks. Reason 4, Enzo doing the Running Man. Now, if you haven't seen this in a while or ever, you can go look at GIFs or GIFs, whatever the fuck the kids call them, right? I say GIFs personally, right? There's a GIF of Enzo doing the Running Man, and it's fucking hilarious. It's just him doing one motion, but it's funny because he does it in inopportune times, right? The crowd's losing their mind. They're like, Enzo, and he just does it as a reaction. It was great, you know? Reason number 5, how you doing? How you doing was a great line for someone like Enzo. It was so great, in fact, that it was later adopted by people like Pat McAfee in his catchphrase, how you doing, keep it moving, you know? Very important stuff here that we're talking about, guys. Trailblazing, you know what I mean? Reason number 6, the theme song, motherfuckers. The theme song and the lyrics to the theme song were both amazing. You know what I mean? The theme song was great. Think about that. Listen to the theme song on YouTube, and you'll see the lyrics, right? It's fucking hilarious. It's like so poorly put together that it makes it funny, right? You know what I mean? So he says like, you're soft like balsa. You know what I mean? Like balsa wood. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, that's fucking weird. You know, who would say that, right? Or like he rhymes words that don't rhyme, you know? It's part of his whole like aesthetic, right? Of this goofy guy who doesn't give a fuck. And it fits well, motherfucks. Reason number 8. Enzo was clever, motherfucks. Enzo was clever. He was someone that I know that people talk about how he wrote the promos in his book. I saw this Simon Gotch interview where Simon Gotch is like, I don't write promos. I can just do it on top of my head. Great. I've never heard of one Simon Gotch promo. I've heard a million Enzo promos. So why don't you come to me and tell me which strategy is better? Simon Gotch ain't the hater. He can't do it off the top of the dome like I do. Motherfuckers. And even with videos like this, I have to write this shit down. Now, granted, for the Enzo video, it took me about 1 minute to write all these reasons down because there's so many reasons why Enzo's cool, you know? So there you have it. Reason number, let's see here, number 9. Enzo was actually a cool guy, all right? You can tell this is a dude that in high school got laid. He got invited to parties. He did cool guy things, right? He's not like Xavier Woods, for example, who probably didn't do any of that shit, right? Xavier Woods was the guy that Enzo picked on in high school. So you can just tell this from people, right? It comes from his confidence, it comes from his demeanor, it comes even from his appearance and the fact that he's willing to make an ass out of himself. But not in like the Xavier Woods kind of way, the haha, aren't I funny for making an ass out of myself. He actually is willing to make an ass out of himself, you know what I mean? So that's pretty cool, I think. Reason number 10, one of my favorites. Enzo Amore would have destroyed Joey Janela in a fight. For those of you that don't know, the first time I heard of Joey Janela, and probably the first time anyone heard of Joey Janela, was that he ran into Enzo at like a Foo Fighters concert or some other band, right? And they had some sort of beef online, and they got in each other's faces, right? So I hear about this, and I'm like, oh, poor Enzo. He's gonna get his ass kicked. I mean, Joey Janela must be like bigger than him because Enzo's obviously a smaller wrestler. So just if Joey Janela's above average, he probably beat up Enzo, right? Then I look, Joey Janela's like 5'3". Enzo's like towering over him. You know, Enzo, he was like a cruiserweight, but he was like 6'1" or 6 foot, you know what I mean? Like he was bigger than like, let's say Finn Balor, you know what I mean? And he's way bigger than Joey Janela. So it's ridiculous for people who are saying like, oh, Joey Janela did death matches, therefore he beat up Enzo, like fucking dumb shit like that, you know? So there you go, that's a good reason in my opinion. Reason 11, a friend of mine from law school personally knows Enzo Amore. In fact, they went to high school together, and he tells me that Enzo Amore is a great guy. You know? Now, take that for what it is. I haven't met Enzo myself, but that's what my friend says. Reason 12, motherfucks. Enzo was the best cruiserweight champion in the history of the cruiserweight title, current format. Now, I'm not going to say he was better than, let's say, Rey Mysterio, right, or Tajiri. I don't think he's better than them, but he was better than everybody else. He's better than Cedric Alexander. He's better than Neville, you know? He's better than all these guys. So there you have it. I think that right there speaks volumes, you know? Reason number 13, Neville quitting because he lost to Enzo, which is a bitch move, but it made everyone happy because nobody wanted to see Neville again. Let's be real. I mean, Neville, he's got his positives. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate the guy, right? But that was a bitch move. Oh, you made me drop the title to Enzo. You had it for like a year, basically, motherfucker. You know, and we're dropping it to someone that might actually put the show over. You know, you couldn't get it done, Pac. That's why 205 Live is what it is today. Nobody gave a fuck. You know, they didn't focus on the things that make cruiserweights interesting. Number one, like every other wrestling, cruiserweights need stories too, motherfucker. You know, they need stories. You can't just like run like just random matches of two guys in a mask. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Nobody wants to see that. And then furthermore, the second part is that cruiserweight wrestling is associated with a specific style of wrestling. And that is not like the Drew Gulak style. It's not the Mustafa Ali style. It is the Rey Mysterio style. I want to see Rey Mysterio versus Rey Fenix versus Lince Dorado in a triple threat ladder match. I don't want to see Drew Gulak versus Tony Nese. You know, a guy with a running knee finisher and a guy whose finisher I don't even know. Or the Gulak, I guess, a little sleeper hold, you know? These are not cruiserweight wrestlers, they're just small guys. You know, there's something to be understood there when someone says cruiserweights, right, in wrestling. It's the same thing as when someone says heavyweights in boxing. You expect big, strong guys with incredible punching power. You don't expect some midget, right, who happens to be like 260 pounds, but has no power and fights defensively. You know, there's an expectation, motherfuckers. That's why people like Vladimir Klitschko were considered boring-ass champions, right? Because they had boring-ass fights. And the heavyweight division nearly died until fucking Tyson Fury saved that shit, you know? So there you have it. I think that's a pretty good reason right there as well, motherfuckers. Reason 14, another personal favorite. Enzo was hired almost exclusively because of his mic skills, right? This guy's mic skills were unparalleled for the time that he was in wrestling. Now again, I'm not going to say he's as good as, let's say, like Christian or Jericho or The Rock or even Bubba Ray Dudley, but he was good. You know, he was better than people like Dolph Ziggler, better than people like The Miz. One thing I'll never forget was I saw a thing that it said like it was like some Raw review, and it was of Dolph Ziggler and The Miz and one of their 15,000 feuds, right? And the person that wrote the review was like Miz and Ziggler went back and forth, and charisma was oozing all over the place. And I'm like, all right, dude, all right, let's take it down a notch. Miz is definitely charismatic, you can't deny it. Ziggler is not at all charismatic. So I know for a fact that Ziggler didn't contribute anything to this feud with The Miz or the promo, right? And Enzo, I believe, was more charismatic than both of them, motherfuckers. Both of them. Reason 16, Enzo is from New Jersey, and New Jersey rules, motherfuckers. Reason 17, Enzo is probably like that in real life. That's another good example, right? It's like you turn on AEW, you see Dolph Ziggler's brother. He's exactly Dolph Ziggler. He has the same exact gimmick, the same exact look. He's clearly trying to be the next Dolph Ziggler. And that's not a good thing to want to be, because Dolph Ziggler sucks and he's boring, you know? Enzo Amore, I feel like he is like that in real life. I should ask my friend, you know what I'm saying? There we go. Reason 18. Enzo and Cass invading ROH or whatever other indie promotion they invaded was great, but the neckbeards hated it, which means it makes Enzo cool. Anything someone does that the neckbeards hate is cool, and this was great, right? Instead of looking at it as what it is, two WWE guys gracing ROH with their presence, they looked at it as like, oh, Enzo and Cass are stealing the spotlight from like ACH and Adam Page. Like, who gives a fuck, you know what I mean? Who gives a shit about those guys? Reason number 19. Enzo's feud on YouTube or whatever with Tama Tonga exposed Tama Tonga big time. A lot of people were saying Tama Tonga deserves to be in WWE and get a serious push. I was saying, what the fuck are you talking about? We haven't seen anything impressive from this guy except for the fact that he wears face paint, you know? He's lucky he wrestles in Japan where he's not expected to cut promos. Isn't that a weird coincidence? A lot of these guys that quote unquote make a name for themselves in Japan and are not Japanese are just guys that suck. You know, they're not entertaining guys, right? It's like even Kenny Omega, AJ Styles as well. Like, I love AJ Styles, but he's not entertaining. He's not like this great promo guy. He's not there for that reason, right? He's there because of the things he can do athletically, which are awesome. I'm not trying to shit on AJ Styles or even Kenny Omega in this particular instance. I'll show him another time, you know? But the facts are what the facts are. It's like all these people go to Japan, they become big stars because it's like, oh, you're different, you know what I mean? It's the same reason why like Nakamura might get pushed here once in a while because he's different. It's like, oh, we see a lot of like random Americans and Canadians, so what say you we push this Japanese guy or Muhammad Hassan or Ali or these other people that don't fit the mold, so to speak, right? They don't look like WWE superstars of the past. It's the same thing in Japan. You know, like Tensai was not valued because he was this incredible in-ring technician. No, he was valued because he's a big motherfucker with a hairy chest and a hairy back and then covered it up with tattoos. You know, he was valued because of his presence and his appearance, which is untraditional when compared to the Japanese wrestling aesthetic, if you will, right? So it's the same thing here, motherfuckers. Same thing here, you know? And Enzo is the way he is, I believe. And I think that's really what matters when exposing Tama Tonga. Tama Tonga was exposed as a guy that can't cut a promo. Enzo completely humiliated him. Tama Tonga should have retired right then and there, if you ask your boy. Reason number 20, motherfuckers, they made Carmella. Carmella, which is, I'm not saying she's like the next Trish Stratus, but Carmella is an entertaining diva, right? And they brought her in. And more importantly, they brought her in with a gimmick. The gimmick was that she was like a hairstylist, and accidentally Enzo Amore dropped like some, you know, like concoction that makes people bald. He dropped it on her poodle or something, on her dog, right? So as payback, she demanded that Enzo and Cass get her a contract, and they did. They followed through, motherfuckers. Reason number 21. Enzo would have made an incredible 24/7 champion, and you all know it. It's just a fact of life, you know? R-Truth is also an incredible 24/7 champion. R-Truth is probably like, that's probably the best person for that role. But if they didn't have R-Truth, they could have put Enzo. And if they had R-Truth, and R-Truth and Enzo were feuding, we wouldn't have to see the stupid ass R-Truth Akira Tozawa segment. You know what I mean? It would be R-Truth and Enzo instead, and it would be hilarious. You know, and they could easily turn that into a tag team and win gold, if you ask me, motherfuckers. Reason 22, another personal favorite. Enzo is a little guy that proves that you can be successful in wrestling. This is a person that people should idolize. The Smarks should love Enzo, you know, because he is someone that they can actually be. You know, he's not this incredible physical specimen. I mean, he's not a pussy, but like he's not an incredible physical specimen by any stretch of the imagination. Yet he has achieved the dream, right? So there you go. Reason 23, Enzo's mannerisms and his taunts. You know, the little thing that he would do when he was roll his shoulders and arms, all his facial expressions, all his delivery, all that goes under here. And all of that was awesome. So there you go. That's a good reason right there if you ask your boy, right? Reason number 24, Enzo's roasts were great and they were on point. Some of the memorable ones include something like this. I think it was against Carl Anderson. He's like, Carl Anderson, you are like Times 12-point font. You are as generic as it gets. And nobody can argue that that is a fact of life. Obviously, Carl Anderson is like the epitome of being a generic guy. Like, he has no character, he has no personality, he has no charisma, he has none of that, and yet here we are, you know what I mean? He's still a big deal because he wrestled in Japan. Reason 25, obviously my favorite, left for last. Enzo embodies what makes wrestling great, motherfuckers. It's not about being good in the ring, or even being a big guy, honestly. It's all about charisma, and that cannot be ignored or denied in the instance of Enzo Amore. The facts are what the facts are, right? This guy is extremely charismatic, and he proves that wrestling is about this. Because if he didn't have the personality, the mic skills, and things like that he has, he would never be hired, right? There's a million guys at any gym in the world that look like Enzo Amore, but there are very few people that can talk like Enzo Amore. And as a matter of fact, as time has gone by, we've seen that a lot of things that we thought were rare talents are not so rare after all. Right, motherfuckers? Think about it. Rey Mysterio, we thought he was the only one that could do that back in the day. But now we have Rey Fenix, we have Lucha House Party. Everyone can do these things. It's nothing like that extraordinary anymore, you know? But it still is rare to find people with the ability to speak, the ability to deliver promos, and the ability to excite like they did with Enzo. That's why we haven't seen another Enzo. Do you think if Triple H could find another Enzo, he wouldn't sign him? He would sign him. They were over, motherfuckers. They were so over. Enzo pretty much paid the bills for himself, Carmella, and Cass for the entire duration of their unity, right? Once Cass broke off from Enzo, it was a wrap for him. And then once Enzo was falsely accused of rape or whatever, it was over for him too. And that's another story for another time. But the facts are what the facts are. Cannot be denied how great Enzo is. And with that, motherfuckers, I'll talk to you bitch boys later, motherfuckers.